All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to be talking about rational functions and how to graph them specifically. Okay, so there's a lot of things. So here are all the different types of rational functions. The easiest one is like 1 over x. And then essentially if you have x's on top and bottom and they can't just simplify out, those are rational functions. Okay, now here are all the steps. I highly recommend you read these on your own time. Just press pause and read them. But I'm going to show you just with an example on how to graph and how to do everything. Okay, just know that VA stands for vertical asymptote. HA stands for horizontal asymptote. Here's your y-intercept, x-intercept. We're going to be making a sign chart. I'll show you what that means in a second. We're going to be needing our limits as they go to left and right infinity. So these are related to your horizontal asymptotes, by the way. Okay? All right. So the one that does require how to figure out is your horizontal asymptotes. So horizontal asymptotes you can figure out by this idea of bottom heavy, top heavy, or equal. Okay, and so if it's bottom heavy, that means that if you look right here, I know it's a little blurry, but notice how there's a higher power in the bottom. So if the power in the bottom is bigger than the one on top, then your horizontal asymptote is going to be 0. So if it's bottom heavy, y equals 0. If it's top heavy, okay, so if it's top heavy, then it's this weird thing. Essentially, it goes up forever or it goes down forever. And so this would you would say none. It doesn't have a horizontal asymptote. It can also be said that it is oblique. In other words, you have to divide by denominator. And if you get like, let's say an even, then it goes up, up, or down, down for even. But if you get an odd after you divide, okay, so if you get an odd, it does the whole switcheroo kind of thing. Okay, so that's it seems like the hardest one, but it's not. It just means that there's no horizontal asymptote, so it goes either up or down forever. And then the easiest one, if it's equal powers, so notice right here, you have, I'll do it in blue, it's x squared and x squared, and don't forget to include that negative sign with it, whatever signs are in front of it. Then you just get those two coefficients, and you just divide them. So in this case, it would be 2 divided by -1, and that would be your horizontal asymptote. Okay? The rest I'll explain as we go. Okay, so here we go. First and foremost, how to find vertical asymptotes. To find vertical asymptotes, you have to set the denominator equal to 0 and solve it. That's it. All right, so we set the bottom equal to 0. Now, to make our life easier, we're going to factor all this and make it all nice and pretty. So to factor the bottom, that's just a difference of squares. So x minus 3, x plus 3. That's going to make life easier. So x plus 3, x minus 3, or whichever order you want. The top one, you can factor out a -3, which leaves the inside as x squared plus x minus 2. And then that can be factored again. So this is going to help us later. So this is going to be, let's see, x plus 2, x minus 2, if you factor. Okay? Now, for the vertical asymptote, set denominator equal to 0 and solve. So just set the bottom equal to 0. And you know what? I'm going to do everything in different colors. That way you all can see what I'm doing. So style and red. Okay, so the vertical asymptote will be in red. So set denominator equal to 0 and solve. So let's see. X plus 3 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. So now we know that our vertical asymptotes are x equals -3 and x equals 3. Okay, done. Horizontal asymptote. That's the top heavy, bottom heavy that we just talked about. I'll do that one in blue. That's the top heavy, bottom heavy, or equal scenario. So in this case, we see that we are equal. So our answer is that -3 over 1, which is just -3. Okay, so that's a horizontal asymptote. For your y-intercept, literally just plug in 0 into everything and solve. So y-intercept is just f of 0. So if we do that and we plug 0 into everybody, Okay, so for your y-intercept, we have negative 3 times 0 squared minus 3 times 0 plus 6 all over 0 squared minus 9. So that's going to just be 6 over negative 9, which gives us 2/3, negative 2/3. So the point, and remember this is a point, this would be 0 comma negative 2/3. So that's a point. Okay. For x-intercept, you set the numerator equal to 0. Okay, so what color can I pick for that one? Let's say purple. Okay, so you set the numerator equal to 0 and you solve it. So purple, set it equal to 0, solve it. So it's going to be negative 3 equals 0. That makes no sense. X plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0. So we have our two x-intercepts, and these again, they're points. So it would be negative 2 comma 0 and 1 comma 0. Okay, now the sign chart is where you take all these values and you're going to pretty much figure out whether they're positive or negative and all that. So we're going to make a sign chart. This one can be in black because you're just taking all those values. These are what are known as like critical points. Critical, where all this happens. So let's see. Easy critical point we had at first was at 1. Okay, so like let's take all the x-intercepts. Those are critical points. So 1 and negative 2. All right, remember, only x values count as critical points. So these are x values. Excuse me. And then the negative 3 and the positive 3. Okay, those are all the x values that we got. So x values, x values. And now the sign chart, essentially you're plugging these values into the function to figure out whether it's positive or negative. Now, you're going to pick numbers that are in between. So numbers in between would be like right here, after, in the middle, and before. Those are all the numbers you're going to be picking. And then you just got to tell me whether they're positive or negative. And that's going to help us graph it. By the way, our horizontal asymptotes right here on this side, we already figured that out to be negative 3. So it goes to negative 3 on both sides. Okay, so when you go left forever, you're going to end up at negative 3. And when you go right forever, you're going to end up at negative 3. That'll all make sense in a bit. So now for the sign chart, we're going to be using this guy right here because plugging numbers into this will make life way easier. So I'm going to go over here and plug and check. So let's see, that was negative 3, x plus 2, x minus 1, all over, x minus 3, x plus 3. Okay, cool. So now we can see this. Now you're going to pick your favorite numbers, you're going to plug it in, and all I care about are the signs. So pick your favorite number before negative 3. I'll do this in pink. Let's say negative 4. So now what is f of negative 4? Well, I'm just plugging in negative 4. So negative 3 times negative, so the negative 3, that's still negative. If you plug a negative 4 into this, that's going to be negative. And if you plug a negative 4 into that, negative. And then if you plug a negative 4 into this bottom one, negative. And if you plug a negative 4 into that, negative. All I care about are the signs. So the bottom is going to be a positive after all, because negative times a negative is positive. But a triple negative is going to stay negative. So negative divided by positive, negative. So now I know that before the negative 3, my sign is negative. Now pick your favorite number between negative 3 and negative 2. Let's say negative 2.5. So now we're going to do, and I'll do this one in a different color, that way we can just not get confused. So f of negative 2.5, remember, you don't care about the number, you just care about the sign. So that is automatically negative. Plug it in here, negative 2.5 plus 2, that's like negative 50 cents, so still negative. Plug it into that one, negative 2.5 minus 1, it's even more negative. Now, negative 2.5 minus 3, that's negative. But negative 2.5 plus 3, that's positive. So now we have triple negative becomes negative. Negative times a positive is a negative. So now we have here a negative over a negative, which is positive. So now we know that this was positive. And we keep doing that for all the numbers. Okay. So as we keep doing that, if you plug in, let's say, a 0, okay, so if we plug in 0, so let's see, if you plug in 0, let's do that one in green. So f of 0. So it's, let's see, negative, plug in a 0 into this, that's positive, plug in a 0 into the next one, that's negative, plug in 0, that's negative, plug in positive. So let's see, negative times a negative is a negative, it's positive, so double positive means positive. This is negative, so it ends up being negative. Okay, hip hip hooray. Now we're going to do the next one. Let me just separate that so we have some room. I'm going to use up a little bit of the next page, but again, you can do this on a separate sheet of paper. It's just so we can figure out. Now let's plug in, let's say, a 2. So now f of 2. Plug into -3, it's just -3. Plug into the next one. You guys should already be figuring out what's going on here. So if we're plugging in a 2, this would be, oops, sorry, so negative, positive, positive. Let's see, this is going to be a negative and this is going to be a positive. So let's see, the top is obviously going to be negative. The bottom is going to be negative. So the whole thing ends up becoming positive. Good. And now we're going to plug in a 4. So let's just do the last one in black. So f of 4, because that's the number that's right here. So f of 4 is going to be negative, positive, 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 positive. So top is negative, bottom is positive, ends up being negative. So now we at least know the direction of everything, like where everything ends up being. So now let's go to our graph and start plotting all these points that we know. Okay, the sign chart is just going to tell us where everybody goes. Alrighty, so let's plug in the easy ones, our x and y intercepts. So at 0, comma, -2/3. So first let's draw some lines. Okay, there we go. So now, -2/3, we use green for that, so let's use green. -2/3 goes about right here, a little less than 1 on the negative side. Now let's plug in our, let's see, x-intercepts. So at -2, comma 0, those were in purple. And then 1, comma 0, so that goes right there. Okay, now let's do our horizontal asymptotes. Horizontal asymptotes were in green, I'm sorry, we're in blue, and that goes to -3. So horizontal asymptote means I'm going to be moving around that. Okay, vertical asymptotes were in red. So let's see, -3 and 3. So that goes there, and then 3 goes right there. Okay, so those are the kind of like what's going on. Now let's use our sign chart to fill everything in. Now I know my horizontal asymptote means that I'm coming in from the -3, and then at -3 I'm negative. So we're going like this, and then it's a horizontal asymptote. So before -3, I am definitely, oh, let me make this black. Before -3, I'm negative, and then I stay negative. But then between the -3 and the -2, I should be positive, and I have to go through this dot. So I go through the dot, and then I have to go to negative, because right here, then I go negative afterwards, and then I have to cross. And then after the 1, I become positive. So it goes up. And then after the 1, I'm still positive, so there we go. But then after the 3, I'm negative. So I should go something like this. And there's our graph. Guys, this is hard. Don't get me wrong. This is even difficult for me. Okay, so we're going to get through this together. We'll work on the next ones together tomorrow in groups, and then I'll help you guys out. And then for the test, you'll be able to do this. It just takes practice. Okay? All right, so I'll see you guys tomorrow, and don't freak out. We're going to work on them together. All right, see you later.